From the soundstage of the Digital Media Classroom here at Wellington High School, welcome once again to another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes. This morning's show, as always, is being brought to you by the Patricia Lindley Center for the Performing Arts, located at the McCormick Middle School, adjacent to Wellington High School, and also by the Wellington Music Store, located at 117 West Herrick here in downtown Wellington. Our helpers this morning are Matt Kraske and Nick Mascari. We're going to do something a little bit different this morning. We are doing, for the first time this semester, we're actually doing a Skype interview, and we are interviewing this morning Mr. Bob Lasko, who is a 1978 graduate of Wellington High School, and as it turns out, he was a classmate of Dave Conklin. This is the continuing series depicting how Wellington High School District and the community produce successful American citizens, and to that end, we're interviewing, as I said, Mr. Bob Lasko, who is sitting in an Embraer 145 aircraft currently at this time. Well, welcome, Bob.
Hi.
Obviously, as I said, you graduated in 1978, and you were a classmate of Dave Conklin. So my first question to you is, what do you remember about Dave Conklin? Is there anything that stands out about Dave when you were his classmate?
I just thought Dave was a great guy. He was more athletic and more academic than myself, but we got along really good.
Was there anything that stood out about Mr. Conklin while you were in high school?
Just a really good, popular guy in the school. Real tough. Very tough.
And he's also a very popular teacher right now at the school, because every time we have a student teacher appreciation night, he is always up there with one of the students. Well, you were involved a lot in your early years in athletics, but an injury you told me about kind of got you out of that. So explain what a typical day for you in high school actually was, when you wake up in the morning and then go to school.
Well, I actually woke up a little early, earlier than normal, to usually check a trap line before going to school, and then school was fine, but I didn't seem to be too active in after school. I don't know what you call it.
Activities, extracurricular activities?
I usually left school just in time to get my beagle and my shotgun and go hunt behind the Wellington Cemetery.
Well, you obviously is an avid outdoorsman, which we'll talk about during the second segment. But I want to talk about, first of all, your mom is very involved in the Wellington School District. Tell us about her.
Well, I believe she started working with the Wellington school system when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and she continues to this day. So I think many people in the classroom probably know my mom.
Yeah, probably so. Well, your dad worked for the FAA, and I guess that's where you started getting interested in aircraft and things like that, but more so in the avionics section. And I believe you took a course known as the Integrated Avionics course. Tell us about that course.
Okay. Are you talking about in the military or after?
Well, it was actually in the military, which we will be talking about in the second segment. But talk about how you got interested in avionics and communications, navigation, things like that.
Well, my dad was a FAA employee, always an aviation enthusiast. So I went to a lot of air shows, and I built a lot of little airplanes, and we eventually got into the early radio-controlled airplane hobby when I was a teenager. And our whole family, my brothers and everybody, we were steered towards aviation just because of my father's interests.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually led me into joining the Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure that I probably talked to your dad being in Cleveland Center, and I flew over Cleveland Center a lot. when I was flying commercially as in the Air Force. So I probably did talk to your dad a bunch too. So, well, when we come back after this commercial, we'll talk a little bit about your Air Force career, and we'll also talk about your career at American Eagle. This is Dialogue with the Dukes.
Are you tired of dusty equipment with broken parts, or equipment that's going to fall apart in the middle of a jam session? I've got the answer for you. You need to come down to Wellington Music. We've got guitars, drums, keyboard, amps, cords, and picks and strings. Anything that you need, we have down here at Wellington Music. Stop by today, Wellington Music. Call us at 440-647-3233. Once again, 440-647-3233.
We are back. We hope that if you or your organization has something that you would like to have widely disseminated around the village of Wellington, we suggest that you use the Patricia Lindley Center for the Performing Arts, located, as I said, adjacent to the Wellington High School and the McCormick Middle School. Well, during the first portion of this interview, we talked with Mr. Lasko about his time here at Wellington High School, the fact that he is an avid outdoorsman, and that he got interested through his father in avionics and specifically in communications, navigation, and so on. So the first thing that you did after you graduated, Bob, from high school was you went into the Air Force. You were working on F-111s, and as we talked about, you took that integrated avionics course. Talk about your experiences in the Air Force, both at Plattsburgh, the F-111s, and RAF Lakenheath in England.
Well, I went through my training in Denver, Colorado, as far as Mountain Home, Idaho. I got sent to my first job in Plattsburgh, New York, far upstate, beautiful area. Enjoyed the outdoors while I was there, and shortly after, I was there about a year, and I was sent overseas. Became part of what they call the Rapid Deployment Force.
Okay.
NATO was during the Cold War. It was under the Reagan administration. A lot of intense situations in Europe. So we traveled between other NATO countries. A lot of time spent in Turkey, Spain, and other places, Germany. I just stayed in 4 years. I got a very good education, excellent experience. And when I left the Air Force, I knew I was going to stay with aviation. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that you did after you left the Air Force, you got an associate's degree. Talk about the courses that you took and the name of the course.
Okay, I took a avionics technology course for an associate's degree because I thought my military experience was good, my military training was good, but I felt like I'd back that up with a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I just stuck with the associate's degree. I attended an aviation aeronautical school in Oklahoma, and it prepared me real well for the civilian aviation program.
How, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say, you got the associate's degree, and I think that's very important, especially here for the Wellington High School students who may decide that a four-year college degree isn't for them, but an associate's degree is very good. So explain to the students the fact that an associate's degree helped you, obviously, in later life.
Well, it comes down to a little bit of competition in when you're going for interviews. Maybe a military background could get you into a good job, but the other people that are applying for a job, you're in competition. So backing up experience with education, I thought that was a good idea. It proved to be exactly the right idea, so it gave me an advantage when I went to the job fair.
Yeah, well, you obviously got involved with American Eagle. How was that interview process, and why did you decide to choose to go to American Eagle? And it looks like Envoy Air, is that correct?
Yes. When I graduated from Oklahoma, or from that school in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the only thing I could think about was how far away from the large city I can be and still hold this job. I did a little bit of research and found a regional airline in northern Michigan, right near Lake Superior, lots of wide open spaces.
Right.
And it turns out that this is a pretty unusual place for a maintenance facility of this size. So we have a couple hundred people, and we also have the wilderness available, so I got the best of both worlds. A lot of the aviation jobs are normally found in densely populated areas, and I could not operate that well in that environment.
Well, you've been with American Eagle and Envoy Air for 30 years, and you're now a shop chief. Talk about if you would, talk about your responsibilities.
Okay, well, a lot of the aircraft have been around for a dozen or so years, and we're getting mandated to update our systems with the FAA, more safety. So right now, a good portion of my work is modifying aircraft to the standards that are coming out and updates. So a lot of wiring modifications, a lot of equipment upgrades.
Well, certainly sounds like a very interesting career, shall we say, there at American Eagle, and operating with commercial airlines certainly is certainly a very interesting career. Well, before we go, I'd like to talk about the fact that you are an avid outdoorsman, and for people here at Wellington High School, Mr. Conklin has a little, it's not actually a course, but a program called the Endurance Challenge, which is which takes place actually now during the, well, actually it's not really winter time yet, but although if you look out the window, it's snowing outside here in Wellington, Ohio, Bob, and I'm sure you've got some snow up there in the UP of Michigan. But the Endurance Challenge is something that Mr. Conklin started here at Wellington High School, and it involves a lot of things having to do with not only survival, but basically outdoors. And as I said, you are an avid outdoorsman. Talk about your hobbies, not only as an outdoorsman, but you also mentioned the fact that you're involved with photography, with drones, and also with radio-controlled airplanes. And the reason I bring up the drones is the fact that one of the things that the students here in this digital media class, they're going to be involved with drones, and that's another thing that Mr. Conklin does with this digital media class. So talk about, if you would, your experiences as an outdoorsman with drones and photography, and also with radio-controlled airplanes.
Wow, I can go on, and I'll get in trouble.
Go for it.
But yeah, my main hobbies are just wilderness adventure with canoes, boats, and photography. So I've got a drone that I like to use, and I usually backpack it into remote areas, and I outfitted a large Cub, like a Piper Cub radio-controlled aircraft. I have a GoPro camera that I have on that. I do a lot of moose photography. We have quite a herd of moose out here, and if you can go find them, that's a good target with a camera.
Right.
I have canoes stashed in the wilderness that I hike into, and I try to not even make it seasonal. I'm looking for places for some winter camping this winter. So, you know, we have quite a mix of seasons. You know, a lot of snowfall here, try to get out and do some snowshoeing. And then, of course, fishing is probably my biggest hobby.
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly sounds like you're very much of an outdoorsman, shall we say. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people here, a lot of the students here at Wellington High School are also very interested in that. Well, finally, I'd like for you, if you could, give some advice to the Wellington students who might be interested in a career in the military, specifically in the Air Force, or a career in avionics or navigation, communications, doing it commercially. Talk about what they can do, possibly looking forward as far as maybe courses that they might take, or people that they might talk to who might be interested in the military, or who are in the military, or who were in the military, and talk about how that is actually involved from the high school level up to the point where you are actually right now.
Okay, well, the military worked out well for me, and I've always advised people that it's a good route to take. The training's good. They take good care of you. Especially the electronics field, the technical fields, the training is outstanding. It worked really well for me because at the time it was time to decide for college or not. I don't know if I was settled down enough to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically had to rely on my own drive to get myself through that.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be the right decision for me. The college may have been a waste of money to my parents. I don't know if I could have sat still for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was exciting, and I was on my own. I didn't have anybody to check up on.
Right.
So once I got out of that military, that prepared me to just go off into the world and concentrate on my own career.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. And then, of course, with my love of the outdoors, I was pretty content with sticking it out right in this location and making the best of what I could get here.
Exactly. Well, once again, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Bob Lasko, who is currently working, as I said, for American Eagle, specifically for Envoy Air. And we'd like to thank him very much for giving us an insight into his time, his 4 years in the Air Force, and his 30 years working for a commercial airline. So once again, Bob, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and we will be back again next week with another episode of Dialogue with the Dukes.